We are part 5 of our series, In the Waiting. It's a little sub-series that Pastor David has been doing in our bigger series, Act Like Acts. So while we are in this small sub-series of In the Waiting part 5, we know that Paul is still in prison. He has been in prison for 2 years under the governor Felix. He is in Felix's the palace where Felix lives. He is there. He is not in a so-called prison cell, but he is still in bondage. No matter how plush or nice it was, no matter who could come see him or who could not. So he has preached to Felix for 2 years about the gospel of Jesus Christ. For 2 years, he has preached to this man, and Felix has decided that, okay, you're not going to give me a bribe. I'm done. It's time to move on. And in the meantime, we now have a new player on board, a new governor. Festus is now coming on board. So we have talked about in the series, we talked about waiting, trusting in the wait, trusting the wait. We talked about being obedient in the waiting period. We talked about surrendering in the waiting period. And last week we talked about God using us while we're in the waiting period. This week we talked about wisdom in the waiting period. So it comes from Acts 25, 1 through 12. And in 25, 1 through 12, Festus is, Paul is before Festus. The same people who wanted to kill Paul before, now, since they have a new governor, have decided, you know what, let's run that plan back and see what happens. We see if he's going to go along with this. So that's what they try to do. They try to get Festus to just send Paul back to Jerusalem because they're like, on the way back, we can kill him. That's what we wanted to do before, but he had all those soldiers around him. We couldn't get to him. He was protected. But this new governor, our plan might work this time. Our plan might work this time. So Festus is like, okay. Festus is like, okay, nope, nope. I'm not going to do that. Paul's going to be kept here in Caesarea, and I'm going to go see him for myself. So y'all just hold tight. Your leaders can come with me if you want to, but this man really hasn't done anything wrong. So everyone knows that Paul has not done anything wrong, truly. But yet he's still held captive. He still is held captive. So Festus stays in Jerusalem for another couple of days, and he heads back to Caesarea. The next day, he tells his soldiers to bring the Jews who come from Jerusalem stand around him. They are throwing serious accusations at Paul, which are all untrue and cannot be proven. So Paul defends himself yet again and says, I have done nothing wrong. This is the same thing he said before in Jerusalem. I have done nothing wrong against the Jewish law, against the temple, and against Caesar. It's the first time that we see him invoke Caesar, the ruler of Rome, into the picture. Remember now, Paul is a Roman citizen. He's a Roman citizen first. He is a Jew as well, but he is a Roman citizen. And as we learned before, Paul knows his rights. He knows who he comes from. He knows all the things that come along with being a Roman citizen. And again, he was born into this. He didn't pay for it. He didn't have to earn his way up. He was born into this. So he is a Roman citizen. So Festus, Festus is like, okay, he wants to please the Jews. Because, you want to keep this big group of people happy, is what he's thinking. He wants to keep this group of people happy. So he's like, hey, Paul, you want to go to Jerusalem for me to judge you there? Is that where you want to go? And Paul says, why? Basically, why? I'm standing at Caesar's judgment seat now. This is verse 10. I'm standing at Caesar's judgment seat now. This is where I should be judged. Like, I'm a Roman citizen. This is where I need to be judged, right before Caesar's judgment seat. I have done nothing wrong to the Jews. And in fact, Festus, you know it. I haven't done nothing wrong. And if I've done something wrong and the law says I must die, then I agree that I should die. I don't ask to be saved from death, but if these charges are not true, then no one can hand me over to these people. No, you know what? Take that back. I want Caesar to hear my case. Oh, Paul is smart. He is wise. He is smart and he is wise. So Festus is like, all right, you have to ask for Caesar. You have asked to see Caesar, so you will go to Caesar. Remember now, Paul's a Roman citizen. He knows his rights. And he is invoked to go to Caesar. And as we learn, as we all know, where's Caesar? He's in Rome. Remember, God gave Paul a promise. And Paul's been waiting on the fulfillment of this promise, right? For 2 years, he's been waiting on the fulfillment of this promise. Jesus came to him himself and said, don't worry, don't be afraid. You're not going to die. The things that you have done in Jerusalem, you now must go and do in Rome. You've done everything that I've asked you to do. Now I need you to go do the same thing in Rome. So Paul knows that he has a mission from God in Rome that is awaiting him. He just doesn't know how he's going to get there. He's already halfway there. He's in Caesarea. And if you study the maps in looking at historical writings, this was the first step for Paul to get to Rome, was going to Caesarea. And so now that Festus is there, Festus asking what he wants, he's wise enough to say, I want to go see Caesar. Let Caesar judge me. We learn that it is better to be bound and in the will of God than to be free and not in God's will. Paul is bound. He is in prison. He is in bondage. And yet he is in the will of God. And because he's in the will of God, everything is being going to plan. He is leaning on the wisdom that God has given him, because we cannot get wisdom from anyone else. Wisdom comes from God, and he's leaning on the wisdom that God has given him. He's leaning on his smartness. He's leaning on his common sense. He is leaning on his common sense. And here's the thing. Every plan that is brought to you is not good for you. So Festus, for instance, Festus is like, you want to go back to Jerusalem and be judged there? I can judge you in Jerusalem. Paul's like, yeah, you take me to Jerusalem. That's where they want to kill me. No, I'm good. I don't want to go there. I don't need to go there. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Wisdom. And wisdom is not man-made. Wisdom is not man. You can be smart and not be wise. Wisdom comes from God and God alone. So even after 2 years and in waiting, Paul is still connected to God. There have been things that we've been asking God for that he has promised unto us, and we are waiting the fruition of these promises. But are we still connected to God? Are we still connected to God in the waiting? Philippians 4:6-7 talks about be anxious for nothing. It says, don't worry about anything, but pray and ask God for everything you need. Always giving thanks for what you have. And because you belong to Christ, God's peace will stand guard over all your thoughts and feelings. His peace can do this far better than our human mind. So where we lack patience, wisdom is compromised. So we got to have patience. Be anxious for nothing. If we leave our anxiousness unchecked, every good thing looks like God. Just because it looks good doesn't mean it's good for you. So every good thing might look like God, but doesn't mean it is God. It doesn't mean it's good for you. You have to have wisdom. You have to have a connection with God. You have to have a relationship with God while you're in the waitings. It says, wait on the Lord. He will equip you for the wait. Faith in God. This was deep. Faith in God is not a substitute for common sense. Faith in God is not a substitute for common sense. Meaning that just because you have faith in God does not expect you not to use your common sense. He gives you common sense for a reason. He gives you wisdom for a reason. And so a lot of times we say faith without works is dead, but are we walking in our faith like he has already answered? Are we going in the direction of the promise that he has said that he will fulfill for us? Are we making strides toward that promise? Or are we sitting there just waiting on God to have the promise fall in our laps? Remember, God is not a genie in a bottle. He's not a genie in a bottle where you just rub him and ask all these things and it's just going to appear. You have a part in the fulfillment of these promises. God is expecting us to move as if it has already been done. I believe that's Mark 11:24. Believe it's already been done. One of my favorite texts. Exploring practical and physical options doesn't constitute a lack of trust in God and God's ability. Exploring practical and physical options doesn't constitute a lack of trust in God and God's ability. Meaning, an example was given, meaning that if you know that this surgery can help save your life, have the surgery. God provides doctors to facilitate healing. God provides, just like God, you have mechanics to fix your car. You can't drive your car and hope that it's just going to stay together and it's going to be miraculously healed. Not to say that God can't do it, but God has created these people with the wisdom and the knowledge of medicine that they know what they're doing. And then, first of all, God is the master physician, so he's guiding their hands anyway. There are practical things that happen. There are physical things that occur and options that we can choose. It does not constitute a lack of trust in God and God's ability. In fact, it says, God, I believe you put this person in my path to help me. I'm trusting you that this is the person that you sent to help me. Let the person help you. We got to have wisdom. And in order to have wisdom, we have to be in prayer. We have to stay in our secret place. We have to study our word. We have to have a good relationship with God where we can hear God's voice talking to us and know that it's Him. That we ask and we seek wisdom. We seek discernment. We seek an understanding so that we're not out here making foolish decisions, ignoring red flags. And that was the other thing. He talked about how we will make decisions, say that it's God because it looks good and it feels good, and ignore all the red flags. That one cut deep for me because I've been there. I understand what it means to ignore the red flags, thinking you're making a good decision and you're not. Because God is showing you this is not what I want for you. This is not the road that I want you to take. But a lack of relationship will have you ignoring red flags. A lack of relationship will have you acting stupid in the waiting and miss out on the promise. So today, let's seek wisdom from God. Let's deepen our relationship with Him. And like Paul, when it's time and the question is asked, do you want to go to Jerusalem? No, I want to go to Rome. Take me to Caesar, because that's where the promise is. God already told me I got to do the same thing I did in Jerusalem. The same mission trips I already did, I need to do it in Rome as well. I got work to do. Take me to Rome. Let Caesar judge me. You know what? If no one else has told you today, guess what? I love you.